In his new book, Creating the Quran, Dr. Stephen Shoemaker draws on Islamic traditions to show that there are as many as 10 compilations of the Quran that are seen as Uthmanic. So the fundamental question becomes, which Uthmanic Quran is really the true Quran? So Dr. J, which Uthmanic Quran are we talking about?
Yeah, well, this is a real conundrum. If you're one thing you have to love about the Islamic traditions, they are so full of contradictions.
But God knows best.
But God bless him, because I wish he did know best. Because if he knew so well, then why did he have so many contradictory introductions and phraseology, and also authorship? Because it's the authorship we're looking at. And it's not me that came up with these. These are all Shoemaker. Shoemaker found these. And all that Shoemaker did is just, listen, when you're talking about the Uthmanic recension, you're talking about that text. Let's see what the traditions say. Let's just unpack each one of them, because there's a lot of them that fly against each other and in the face of what we know the common knowledge is from Al-Bukhari. Al-Bukhari says it was Uthman. It's very clear. But he's not the only one that talked about it. He's not the only one referred to it. So let's start putting him up there, and let's just see the ones that he's come up with. Number one, Salim ibn Maqil compiled the Quran in 632. So that's the first one. So we have here that someone not even Uthman compiled it.
Salim ibn Maqil, yeah.
Then we have a second one, Umar alone, without Abu Bakr, collected the first.
Correct.
Throw Abu Bakr out of there. So he himself, the second caliph, was the one that did it. But then we have Abu Bakr without Umar, commissioned Zayd ibn Thabit to compile. So that just completely confronts it. Here's a third possibility. And then a fourth possibility. After Abu Bakr died, Umar then commissioned Zayd ibn Thabit to compile the Quran. So even not while he's living, this is after he died, he finally did so because he realized he needed to get this done. This hadn't been done before. A fifth possibility was that Umar asked Abu Bakr to have it compiled. He didn't want it to have it compiled because he said the same excuse that Zayd ibn Thabit had said, and that is, how can I do something that the Prophet hadn't done? So he waits for him to die, and then he has it done after he's dead. That's a fifth possibility that Shoemaker found. And then the sixth one is another one that you and I have heard, and we've heard this many times, and he found both Sunni and Shia sources for saying this, that Ali, Muhammad's cousin and son-in-law, it was he who actually compiled the Quran.
And he compiled it in an amazing speed, 3 days, in one weekend.
In one weekend. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So you can see that is a sixth one that we've heard this, and I knew about this, but I've never really thought about putting it together. Thank you, Shoemaker, for doing this. That's not all. Aisha, the favorite wife of Muhammad, also compiled it. She was the one that was commissioned to do so, or commissioned herself to do so. An eighth one that he refers to are the 4 companion codices that were compiled not by Uthman at all. And we've already referred to that. We've intimated about. One was Ubay ibn Ka'b, who was up there in Damascus. Another was by Ibn Masud, who was in what is today Baghdad. Back then it was either Hira or Kufa. And then you had Ibn Musa, who was in Basra, which is in southern Iraq today. And then you have a fourth one by Al-Aswad from Hims, the city of Hims. So here's 4 companion codices that come long after Uthman. This is in the later 7th century, but from 4 different cities. That's where their compilations are. We've already talked about this. Ubay ibn Ka'b had 116 surahs in his codex.
Ibn Ka'b, yeah.
Ibn Masud had either 110 or 111, depending on which. Again, you can't even get that clarity. And then Ibn Musa, though he had 114, but they weren't the same 114, nor did they even have the same names as the one that Zayd ibn Thabit, and then you have this one by Al-Aswad in Hims. So that's an 8th possibility of another Uthmanic Quran. Even in this case, they come after Uthman. And then number 9, Saif ibn Umar. Look at the date. This is way back in the 8th century. In his book, Book of the Conquest, suggests there were several competing collections during Uthman's reign, and he authorizes a Medinan version to purge the others. So in some ways, that's close to Al-Bukhari was saying, but not many Muslims will agree with that. In fact, most Muslims, when you bring this to the fore, they say, no, there can't be other Uthmanic. These are nothing more than dialectical differences. But that's not what Saif ibn Umar, he was saying, no, these are different codices that were competing with the Uthmanic recension or the Uthmanic codex. that became the standard.
Right.
And number 10, the last one, according to Ibn Shaba, and this is in the 9th century, the Quran was compiled before 632. That means while the Prophet was still living.
Exactly. Well, during the life of Muhammad.
In multiple versions, and Abu Bakr and Uthman were only trying to establish the authoritative one among them. So he was trying to say, well, listen, these were all ones that were given authority by Muhammad. And some people do refer to the 7 readings that Muhammad was, when people coming in to Mecca, or they're coming into Medina where he was living, and they were hearing the recitation. They couldn't understand this recitation. So he asked Jibril if he could bring it down in 7 readings,
right,
so that they could have it in their own dialect. And so these are readings, but these aren't codices, these are readings. You don't have codices of dialectical codes, as we said in a previous episode. You can't have that without the dots and without the vowels. So obviously these are nothing than oral readings of the way you look at the word and you pronounce it different. You look at the word, you pronounce it different. You either or u or e vowel, or you put a nun, a ta, a tha, ba, or ya, depending on where you put the dots. So that's what that's referring to. But again, this is a real problem. Which one are we talking about? Which Uthmanic recension? 10 different possibilities, all kinds of different variations. Can you see why this is so confusing, and why obviously this suggests there's an awful lot of human manipulation here?
Absolutely. And Noldeki, in his book, The History of the Quran, did make reference to a number of those actually, let's call them accounts. And he was referring to them as contradictory accounts, especially the ones about Umar and Abu Bakr, which famously everybody knew that, according to the tradition, that Umar approached Abu Bakr out of fear of losing the Quran because of the death of many huffaz, basically, or memorizers during the Battle of Yamama. And he told them that we need to really do this. And they bring Zayd ibn Thabit, ibn Thabit, basically, and he was concerned that he has to do something that the Prophet himself did not authorize, and so on. But then you discover that, well, there's a possibility that actually Umar is the one who did it after the death of Abu Bakr, or that Abu Bakr and Umar did not agree and Uthman waited, or Abu Bakr is the one who initiated. Muslims don't hear these things, by the way. Although, for instance, Noldeki will quote to you traditional accounts. These are writings by early Muslims concerning this. But you don't hear about this.
Now, thank you for Schumacher that he's actually putting these to the fore, and that what we're going to do is just take it in so the whole world hears it. The world needs to know about this. It is not as simple as saying the Uthmanic recension. Which Uthmanic recension? There's quite a few variations, quite a few categories, quite a few different supports for different other traditions that are above and beyond, even with Uthman himself.
In the next couple of minutes, I want to unpack this further from the area of what does this mean to our Muslim friends? Let's talk to them. Let's speak to them.
Well, I would suggest, for Muslims, if you're listening to this, because you have been told something that is only, and this is the only way to look at it, and I understand that because I'm hearing it from you. You're the ones who have been telling me for almost 40 years that there has only ever been one Quran. There has only been one revelation. And this revelation that came down to Muhammad was verbatim the exact same thing that Uthman put together. You've already said, we've already shown you already today in previous episodes that there are already 2 between 632 and 652. That's 2 Qurans. Then we have another 4 companion codices that we talked about. So there's another 4 Qurans. We're not even getting into the Qira'at and the Ahruf. Can you see there's a difficulty with your narrative? What you've been told from the time you were yay-high to a grasshopper, understandably, it's the only thing you're ever going to be told. It's the only thing that I was told. I assumed that these were correct until I started reading the traditions, until I started reading other scholars. And certainly now, until I started reading Shoemaker, did I realize that an awful lot of this is fraudulent. You have not been told the truth. You have not been told what we now know. You're going to have to go back to your imams, you're going to have to go back to your authorities, and you're going to have to ask them the questions we're coming up with. Because notice everything that Shoemaker is introducing is from your own traditions, from your own authority, from your own categories. Therefore, you need to go and deal with it. Please stop making these claims unless you can support it. And if you're going to continue to make these claims, and if you don't like what the traditions are saying, if you don't like all these multiplicity of different authorships, even of the Uthmanic recension, then go back and show us from the 7th century what really did happen. I'd love you to find that. I'd love you to tell us, because we've been asking this, my good friend Al-Fadi and I, we've been asking this for years. Please, from the 7th century, tell us what really happened.
Thank you. And I really share the same desire by my dear brother here. And I add to it and I say, from the bottom of my heart, I beg of you to investigate these things for the purpose of knowing the truth. You and I grew up believing in the authority of the Quran as the only preserved book in the history of mankind. The same God who revealed the Bible somehow allowed the Bible to get corrupt, but he did not allow the Quran to change. But now we're sharing with you evidence upon evidence upon evidence that that claim cannot be further from the truth, because all of the evidence lead to multiple problems, anywhere from the fact that it was compiled by a human to the fact that the Quranic manuscripts are incomplete. They do not support a complete copy from the 7th century. And at the same time, we have multiple ways of reading. Call it Qira'at, call it Ahruf, call it whatever you want. It's not going to change the fact that there are differences. And every time you look at the compilation of the Quran, or the compilation of the standardization of the Quran, or the standardization of the Qira'at, or what we call today the 1924 Cairo edition, human factors were involved at the heart of all of these processes, which tells me if God was behind it, then how come he did not preserve it in the first place, allowing people to struggle and wrestle with deciding what were the correct readings, what were the inspired, basically, readings, what is the actual copy or the original copy of the Quran, and list can go on and on and on. May God open your hearts and your mind to know the truth. Until then, have a blessed day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel CIRA International and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.